Hi guys, this is Sarah from the Sioux City Lewis and Clark Interpretive Center, and we are out at the Sergeant Floyd Monument today on August 20th, 2020 to commemorate the anniversary of Sergeant Floyd's death. Now, if you remember from your 4th grade history lesson, Sergeant Charles Floyd was a member of the Lewis and Clark expedition, and at the center we focus on Siouxland's part of that story. So I recommend that you guys visit the center this weekend to pick up your Floyd to-go kit. And then in the kit, there's a lot of fun stories about Sergeant Floyd so you can learn more. And there's a lot of fun do-it-yourself crafts you can make at home. For example, inside your Floyd to-go kit, you will get to make your very own Floyd Monument. So I recommend stopping by this weekend to grab your Floyd to-go kit. And now right here we are at the monument to learn a little bit more about Sergeant Charles Floyd and the monument that stands right behind me. So Sergeant Charles Floyd, he was born in 1782, way before any of your great-grandparents were born. He was born on the Kentucky frontier, and he was one of the first men enlisted by the captains to go on their journey, to travel up the Missouri River and to travel to the Pacific Ocean. And he did such a good job, the captains decided he should be one of the sergeants, one of 3 sergeants. And as a sergeant, he got to take care of a crew, his own group of men called a squad. For his squad, he had to make sure they did their chores, they didn't fight, and that they were doing really good work. He took care of them. As sergeant, he would also oversee the work on the keelboat, and he would help the captains with their mission to learn about the plants, the animals, and the native people of the Louisiana Territory. Now we know from the journal Sergeant Floyd became ill in late July, and then he became ill again in August 18. And Captain Clark wrote that he had bilious colic. And if you ever had bilious colic, it basically meant you had some really bad stomach pains. And so Captain Clark and York both took care of Floyd. They probably bled him and gave him thunderclapper pills. And these were pills full of laxative and mercury. And if you know anything about medicine, this probably did not help the situation. Mercury is actually a poison. But 200 years ago, they didn't know that. And so unfortunately for Sergeant Floyd, he died on August 20th, 1804. And he was buried on a high bluff overlooking the river. The bluff right here behind me. And his grave actually became a landmark for future travelers traveling right through Siouxland. I actually have a picture of the bluff in the 1830s of what this looked like about 100 years ago. And his post on the top of the bluff was a landmark for travelers who were traveling up and down the river. And so you have to imagine this whole area covered in prairies, tall grass, and flowers. And eventually, in the 1857, there was a flood in Sioux City, which, big surprise, happens a lot. And the flood actually started to wash away the bluff where Floyd was buried. So people from Sioux City quickly gathered together. They were able to collect his bones, and they reburied him on the bluff. And then for another 50 years, we kind of forgot about Floyd until a historian found Floyd's journal again in the 1890s, and that sparked new interest to build the monument. Now, if you ever wonder why the monument, also known as the Big Pencil, is an obelisk, that's the shape of the monument, it is due to this gentleman named Hiram Chittenden, and he's the one that chose the obelisk design because he thought it was a really bold design and that people could see it from miles away. And so we started construction on the monument, and I actually have another picture here from the Sioux City Archives about how that construction looked like. So you can imagine if you were a builder constructing the monument, it was a lot of hard work, but eventually it was finished. In 1901, we had a big parade and celebration, and little fun fact, there's actually a time capsule in the monument today. So I suggest this weekend with your family to come visit the monument, to visit the center to pick up your kits, and we'll see you at the center. Thanks, guys.
My name is Charles Floyd. one of 3 sergeants on the Lewis and Clark expedition, instructed by President Thomas Jefferson to find and map the Northwest Passage that will open our country to great prosperity. It was August 1st, 1803. I was 21 years old, a constable, carrying mail between Louisville, Kentucky and Vincennes, Indiana Territory, when Captain Clark recruited me, one of the first 3 permanent members of the Corps of Discovery. He and Captain Meriwether Lewis saw leadership ability and physical strength in me. They made me one of their 3 sergeants. Captain Lewis later would call me a young man of much merit. As a sergeant, I commanded a small squad of soldiers. I rotated work on the keelboat and supervised basics of camp life. This freed the captains to work on the expedition's diplomatic and scientific objectives. As a sergeant, I was required to keep a journal as a record of our voyage, in case the captain's journals were lost. I was proud to serve on this mission into the treacherous unknown, to carry out my duties, to abide by my captain's orders to the best of my abilities, to cooperate fully in reaching our destination, the Pacific Ocean. With my own eyes, I would see the Pacific Ocean and encounter all wonder and hardship that lay before it. I would return home to tell the story. I died of natural causes on August 20th, 1804, here in this land, just 3 months after our departure from St. Charles, and more than a year before the Corps of Discovery saw the Pacific Ocean. My journal is all that is left to commemorate my part in this important expedition.